This is Aisle 42. In this episode of Aisle 42, I chat with Chris Lerohl from UpRoot Food Collective. We cover a whole range of subjects like his vision for the future of digital and local shopping, food innovation, quality ingredients, storytelling, consumer trends, local food making, and we talk about yummy dumplings and meat pies too. You're going to enjoy listening into this one. Here's Chris from UpRoot Food Collective. Okay, Chris, this is the first conversation on Aisle 42 with a company that is a part of the Ethical Food Group family. So congratulations on being the first EFGer person in the room. Our teams have been working together for a while, so it's been cool to see everything that's come from all the hard work. Thanks so much for jumping on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. That's exciting. I didn't realize we're the first one in the group there.
So as you'd expect, I want to kick things off with a question that's a bit of a zip folder for you, given your role in the food industry, but it's how we roll. Chris, if you were to imagine the perfect grocery store of the future, what would it look like?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think to me, it comes down to having this like level of innovation in there and this like new revamp that every product in there has this level of detail in its ingredients and its story and its authenticity and just really takes a different approach than what's out there today. And I look at some of the products that are in the local markets and everything from stuff like ours to the other amazing brands that there's just so many innovative flavors and it's such high quality and the deck is clean label most of the time. And I just think it would be a place that has just amazing, creative, innovative, and delicious flavors and probably a lot higher quality than what's there today.
Yeah, quality is a tricky game because as brands get bigger, as their production processes get bigger and more robotic, and their inputs have to get simplified so that they don't have any disruption to their flavor performance, and the chemicals start to come in order to keep these things on shelf longer. Yeah, it can be a tricky game.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Like you go to somewhere like Japan, and I think that they have, in general, maybe a higher quality of grocery than what we have here, and they seem to manage to do it with the equipment. And I know, like I look to our experience with some of our products that as we've added some automation with our dumpling machine, I think we actually got a better product out of it now than what we did when we first started because you have that consistency in the like quantities and you have these consistencies in the ingredients that maybe weren't there when we were at a really small scale or in the farmers market. But I think it definitely companies have to grow with that mindset to maintain the quality, and that's not always not always the case that they maintain it and do it. But I think it can be done.
Yeah, so true. Listeners are probably wondering, what do you guys make? So let's get into it. What food products do you and your team make?
Yeah, so we have a couple different brands. We have two main ones are Honest Dumplings and South Island Pies. Honest Dumplings, they're a gourmet Chinese style dumpling, creative flavors like maple pork belly. We have the traditional pork, ginger beef dumplings, some amazing vegan ones like a kung pao tofu, a roasted cauliflower curry, and we have both regular and gluten-free options in that. And then we do a bunch of kind of more smaller scale, earlier stuff like spring rolls and every once in a while some other kind of more exclusive limited editions that we sell on our D2C. Our other brand is the South Island Pies. So they're New Zealand style meat pies. So puff pastry, stew-like filling. We have some incredible flavors in that. Our regulars like a steak and cheese or a steak and mushroom or a Greek, which is a spinach, feta, spanakopita kind of thing. Or and with that, we have lots of limited editions as well, whether it's Jamaican beef or a steak bacon mushroom or butter chicken. So we have lots of different flavors. And I think a big part of what we try to do is bring out kind of this constant rollout of new flavors and get people a new, different experience within our product.
So good. I've tried all your products. Well, not all of the flavors. You just mentioned some flavors that I didn't know existed. So now I'm a little cheesed off. But talk to me about some of the beginning times. I'm aware of your story almost more peripherally, but the farmers market and that ecosystem of sort of being out there at the street level, sharing your food with people, getting people excited about food, getting people excited about local food. That's a really big part of your story, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. You know what, we when we went to start the company and knew nothing of the food industry, so that was really the natural first step was launching in the farmers market. And my wife and I actually started Honest Dumplings, and then down the journey, we ended up merging with South Island Pies. But when we started Honest Dumplings, we had had a whole bunch of our friends and family that had our dumplings or raised dumplings and had loved them, and we didn't really like know how it would go, and so we made a whole bunch, put them in a package, and brought them to the farmers market, and it was right away they started just selling like crazy, and we had a lineup and everything was going. And I remember like just this excitement because we had Ray, I think, was more prepared than me and had like made a ton of product. I was like, oh, we're not going to sell that much, like we don't need to worry. But she was working like all night basically making stuff, and I was packaging. And yeah, never forget that first day of just the sheer excitement, and everybody was stoked about it. And even more so the week after when we started to get repeat purchases. That was, I think, even more exciting because it was like, hey, anyone can kind of sell someone something once, but when someone comes back, then you know you have something.
That's so good. And the UpRoot Food Collective is so much more than just two plucky brands that are growing quickly. Talk to us about the ecosystem that you guys are building. You've done a lot of experimenting. And when you look at the future of the grocery store, I know you have plenty of opinions, even more than what you've divulged so far. So, talk to us a little bit about the Food Collective and what does a collective mean when it comes to the food world?
It's interesting. It's kind of evolved over time and changed, pivoted a few times in our journey. I think when we first started looking at it, it was really around, hey, how do we leverage what we're doing and work with other companies? And I came from the tech industry where there's a lot of technology accelerators and incubators and that type of thing. And at the time, there wasn't really anything in the food space. So my mindset and some of our partners were really looking at things to say like, hey, could we build almost an accelerator type model? And that was really the focus. And then when the pandemic happened, a lot of our colleagues or the companies that we knew who were selling predominantly through farmers markets or really niche grocery lost a lot of their sales. So we kind of pivoted to this e-commerce side of things, and the challenge everyone was facing was sales and distribution. And so really UpRoot focused on that. We developed our e-com extensively, took on, I think at a peak, like 85 brands or something like that, and had like 600 SKUs and expanded across Alberta. But then what we found was kind of once the pandemic went, like things opened up again, that everybody started going back to the farmers market, and we kind of just became almost like a every other store out there. So we looked to say like, how do we pivot this and how do we change our model again? And really there's a lot more margin in your own products than these other brands. So we start to focus more on our brands and focus on South Island Pies, Honest Dumplings, really driving their growth. But at the same time, maintaining some services like we help with distribution for a bunch of brands between Edmonton and Calgary and vice versa. We have company Little Bear Gelato that's been producing in our space for the last kind of 2-3 years. Really just finding different ways that we can help or work with these other companies in some capacity. But really it comes down to this idea of that by local food companies working together, we can make something bigger and make a bigger difference and compete better in the market.
Yeah, I think local is one of those aspects of the food industry that sometimes can be tricky because as a food company grows and becomes more successful, that part of that success is to expand well beyond their backyard. And they need to be selling in other states and provinces and cities and countries, and they need to grow in order to, make more money to keep doing what they need to be doing. Especially too if what they make is desirable and fits a consumption occasion or a health need, or there's all these different aspects of a food company success. But there's something to be said for a culture, an ecosystem for local brands to be able to not only land in the farmers market, but to sort of expand beyond the farmers market and to get onto local grocery store shelves or have access to consumers that they don't normally have access to. So it's a sandbox that is always evolving and changing. And I know even the work you do through digital storefronts and direct to consumer, like sales off website, off your websites and other websites. These are important places for people to connect with, learn, and buy food. What kind of thing are you seeing when it comes to the consumer's experience around buying online? Is it shifting dramatically? Or are you seeing sort of more longer trends that are easier to navigate?
I think now it's pretty steady, and there's a huge place for direct to consumer models. I think they're it's funny because we still do some shows as well. So we kind of have the retail side, the still doing some shows or markets, and then the D2C. And the D2C is really steady, and it's really a nice effective tool, especially with like limited editions and seasonals, and like finding this way to extend the lifetime value of our customer base by bringing them innovative kind of cool things that they can't necessarily get elsewhere. Not that we don't allow it to go into those retail channels if we have limited editions, but not all the retailers are able to kind of pivot or be able to handle that volume of limiteds that we like to make that our customers love. So it's pretty steady and strong. We also do a lot of shows. So right now we just did a gluten-free show in Edmonton and Calgary. And it's the first time I've been to one where it was really specialized around gluten-free. And that was super exciting. Like I couldn't believe it, how much we sold in that. It was like a 5-hour show, and we did almost like 10 grand in sales in 5 hours. It was like the most incredible thing, like hundreds of customers buying and trying your product for the first time. And I think part of sharing that is really, it's a bit of a testament to that not everybody wants to buy D2C, because I've spent a lot of money advertising through that, but then going to this show still is a way for people to connect and try and kind of meet you and see. And so I think some of those shows are really good. And then obviously the retail side is important too, because that's where everybody is every day. And even in the shows in Calgary, we often hear is like, oh, where are you available in the store? I don't want to buy online, but I want to be able to get it. And like having that multi-channel kind of approach, I think is really important. And another thing just I love about shows is it seems that when you go to, say, sample at a grocery store, it can be a lot of effort and a lot of work, and then not necessarily a lot of people coming there trying and buying. But when you're at a show, you have this opportunity where it just seems people are more willing to try or buy, or kind of, you get a lot more density of people, and so you can actually run a show almost as a marketing kind of tool, but it's one that makes money or break even at least, and lets you expand your brand and your awareness and all of that as well.
Yeah. Consumers need to have this stuff, they need to try it. They need to chew it, swallow it, get a sense of the flavor, the texture. They need to sort of imagine it being a part of their lifestyle. And those things, those are experiential things that aren't easily communicated or exchanged, through an Instagram ad or
Yeah.
or an email blast or whatever. But I want to come back to the thing you said about buying food off your website that is limited edition or unique. I think that's one of the things that I get excited about when I see food companies saying to their most loyal consumers, the ones that are buying right off their website. I don't, maybe they're not the most loyal, but there's certainly a direct connection to the food brand. A lot of food companies kind of say, well, you can buy this on shelf, or you can buy it off our website. There's no difference. We're going to throw it in the box. Maybe there'll be some packing foam chips with it, but that's the experience. Whereas others, whether the unboxing experience is unique, or more importantly, the product is unique, and that the only place they can get it, or the easiest place they can get it, is from a website. I actually really like that play, because I think it makes the whole effort worth it. It's different. And it can be very fun. Now, again, I mean, we're in the food business. I'm always buying stuff online. That's because I love it. Drive my wife crazy, because there's always some box of food sitting, at our front door or back door or whatever. But that, I think, is an opportunity for consumers to really get access to something that they don't normally have. So the food brands that are being really creative with it, do that. Buy those products, buy those special editions, because it's really, really fun.
It's fun, and for sure. And like the feedback we get from customers is unreal. Like everybody has their favorite limited editions and their favorite products. And it's fun having the e-com, because you can see the repeats, but like you bring back like Jamaican beef that's not always available. And it's like, bam, just everybody goes in and like puts in orders, and you can see it's those same customers that bought it the time before. And it's fun I think as much as the consumers love it, and part of it is we love it too. Like some of the limited editions that we end up making is like, I'm like, I miss this pie and I happen to plan production, so I'm going to put that in there. Um, and but I think we as the founders too, like I think a big part of the inspiration was like we didn't set out necessarily to build like a big food conglomerate. I think in the early days, and Ray had this passion for dumplings, and Jamie had this passion for meat pies, and like the meat pies in New Zealand, they always have different flavors, and they're in a bakery, and like there is this kind of creative element or creative aspect to that. And Ray, when she started the dumplings, it was very much the same, where it was like, hey, this dumpling's a platform, like let's bring some exciting flavors. And so as much as it's about consumers, it is also, I think, for us as this creative element and something that keeps us excited and passionate. Because I remember the first time I went to the Fancy Food Show in California, where my mind was open to the amount of food innovation and all this, the products out there. But one thing I noticed was it seemed like everything was still kind of, it's like they're trying to develop it to put it on the shelf, and then it's going to not evolve, and you're going to try and sell as much as you can. That was it. We didn't want to build that kind of food company. We wanted to build a food company that maintained innovation, maintained creativity, and kept coming with new flavors and updating the product as we go along.
I love that. And we just came off a food show, a big industry food show, and I got asked a lot of questions around sustainability. I got asked a lot of questions like, what do you mean by ethical? And these are great things to explore. I feel like, there's some baseline aspects to the food industry that all, kind of needs to rise. Our baseline when it comes to healthy food and good food and food that doesn't hurt the planet. I mean, these things we all need to push as consumers. We need to push, our demand and our interest in these things. And the three things that stand out to me the most are local. I do think that as much as possible, not every industry, not every food product can tap into local necessarily, but I think if at all possible, I think we should be celebrating and supporting local companies, local economy, living wages for people that, are in our backyard, I think is really important. I also think organic. I think that we need to keep pushing towards organic ingredients. And I know it's not easy, whether it's margins or access or performance, not every ingredient, is easily handled that way, but we need to keep leaning towards organic ingredients and ideally down the road, regenerative organic. Then the third one is clean label, just labels that have less weird stuff in it, less science, less chemicals, less preservatives, less, this weird stuff that we can't pronounce. So when you think about those three things, what is it about your ecosystem that's leaning into some of those areas?
Yeah, for sure. I think local food in general typically does better on the clean label side of things. And it's a constant challenge. And I look at like Honest Dumplings is probably a bit more clean label than the South Island pies, and we try and do it as much as possible to have everything that's organic, that has kind of that clean label, and push that. But sometimes there's limitations in terms of the ingredients or what's available at the time, so you have to make some compromises. But I think or sometimes it's something really creative that you're okay to step down from that, like a donair pie or something like that maybe isn't as quite as clean label, but it's something super delicious. But in an ideal world, like if we could find that same ingredient and it could be clean label, like we would choose that every day, 10 out of 10 times. So it's always a balance as a producer trying to like find the right ingredients, find the right supply, and managing that. I think sustainability is huge, and even just the fact that if you're buying something local, it probably is inherently a bit more sustainable because it hasn't been shipped as far. It hasn't had that kind of transportation aspect. Utilizing, like, all of our products utilize local wheat and meat and that type of thing, where you're for sure getting more sustainability. I think as the company kind of grows and as we scale, and as consumers support local more and more, it's almost easier for those local food companies to then increase their ability to be more sustainable and have that clean label. If you're selling the volume and to have the profitability, then you can make better kind of choices as you go along. Just on that front, like Honest Dumplings, when we first started, it was all kind of handmade 100%. And the price point was $15 for a dozen bags, or for a dozen dumplings, sorry. And everything was all kind of clean label organic, which we still maintain today. But now we've been able to, because enough consumers are supporting our products and supporting our brands, that we've been able to drop our price from $15 to $10, because we have that economies of scale and we have that manufacturing, that kind of equipment that allows us to improve our margin to pass that back to consumers. So I think as much as it's the onus is on kind of producers to be able to kind of make those decisions, the more consumers support local, support those choices, then the easier it is for the producer to be able to kind of prioritize those key aspects and then really scale the business and grow and make this product more readily available.
Yeah, it's voting with our wallets, right? It's as consumers signaling to, well, the grocery store and ultimately to the food manufacturers that what we value is better products, better ingredients, better performing food. And one of the things I really like about what you guys are doing is that you're in more of in the meal space. And I say that because I think there's in the food industry it's very like snacking is a great category. It's very fun. It's very cool. We all love great snacks. And the next cool snack, well, it gets eyeballs. But there's something to be said for making food products that serve that, hit that meal occasion, that feed a family, that gives enough nutrients to support, a day's activities kind of thing. And so I love the fact that, in fact, my wife and I were just talking about your South Island pies a couple of days ago. She's like, so you can like buy a whole bunch and put them in our freezer? I'm like, yeah, we could buy a whole bunch and put them in our freezer. She's like, that would be really helpful. So I think the opportunity for food companies to lean into the meal categories and to provide the sustenance that consumers need, and then to inspire them in such a way that consumers feel like they can, vote with their wallets. I think it's a part of the ecosystem that's important to lean into. So just wanted to say that love that you guys are doing that.
Oh, thank you. And I agree 100%. I think that's probably one of the biggest opportunities lies in the industry. I think part of the reason that it's more, maybe there's less in it is the challenges associated with developing that type of product that's either frozen or refrigerated, and often maybe contains meat or not, but just the regulatory requirements and all of that make it very, very difficult, which at the same time gives it more of a kind of market opportunity. And I can tell you 100% that consumers are looking for it, because we know from our product base.
That's awesome. Okay, I got one final question for you, but it's an easy one, so you don't have to worry. If there was one celebrity that you would love your South Island pies to get a shout out for, what celebrity would that be?
Oh, that's probably pretty easy, I think. I don't know if you're familiar with the like How To Dad on Facebook or anything, because he's a Kiwi, and he is often doing things with pies because that's quintessential in that New Zealand culture. And I think it would be pretty fun if there was some sort of activity or shout out from the How To Dad in New Zealand. I think there's enough people here that see it, but but I think just for Jamie and myself who follow him and see his stuff, and he's got this funny Kiwi humor, it would be just amazing that it just goes along with what we're trying to build. So
that's so good. And you didn't say Ryan Reynolds, so you get bonus points.
He's second, right?
He's second, yeah. Deadpool's second. I know. Chris, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate you and your team and everything you're doing. And I love knowing that we get to collaborate on cool stuff in food. So thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for listening. To learn more about what Chris and his team are doing, go to uprootfood.ca, where you'll also find links to South Island Pie Company and Honest Dumplings. That's it for me. I'm Corwin Hiebert. We are Ethical Food Group, and I'll see you in the future.